Hi everyone and welcome to Let's Talk Crypto. I'm Brittany, your host, and if you're interested in all things crypto, tech and finance, then this is the place for you. On today's pod, we're going to be talking all things FIRE and not the kind that you're thinking of. We're going to be talking about the FIRE method, which stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. To guide us through this, we're going to be talking to Barney, aka the escape artist. Not only has he achieved great success through the FIRE method, but he has also helped hundreds of other people to do so too. But just before we get started with the pod, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor today, Talisman. Essentially what Talisman is it is a crypto wallet, letting you have self-custody of your assets, which span over 150 plus Polkadot and Ethereum networks. With Talisman, there's no network switching and all of your assets are in one place, making it secure, fast and easy to use. Okay, now let's get on with the pod. Okay everyone, hello and welcome to the podcast. Our guest today is Barney, finance extraordinaire and FIRE pioneer. And no, not in the pyromaniac kind of way. He'll be debunking a little bit about financial freedom for us. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, Barney, that would be great.
Hi, yes. So I write about financial independence and financial freedom. I've been doing that for a while. I mean, my backstory is I did a degree in economics and I trained as an accountant. Then I went and worked in the city in corporate finance for about 20 years. And I was kind of my parents had a big mortgage back in the day. And this was when interest rates went to 17% back in 1981. And that kind of scarred me in the sense that I always, from that point onwards, never wanted to be in debt. I always wanted to have like financial security. And that pushed me towards learning about finance, going into corporate finance. And so when I was working, I essentially squirreled as much money away as I could. I taught myself everything I could about investing and money and finance, and essentially got to the point where in 2013 I had enough and work kind of became optional for me. So I stopped doing what I was doing, quit the day job, and I've been writing about it since.
Oh, fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about what FIRE means? Because I know the abbreviation could be a bit misconstruing.
Yeah, so FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. I mean, the financial independence bit of it, to me, means that work becomes optional. So if you're fully financially independent, you can kind of feed yourself and your family without a job. And so then it's like your choice whether you work or not, what sort of work you do. It obviously allows you to kind of drop out of, I kind of dropped out of the corporate world, but I still do work and projects and do stuff now, but it's optional, I guess. So that's the definition of financial independence. And then the RE bit is retire early. And so, yeah, for some people, it's just a way of getting to retirement quicker. For others, it's a way of like changing career, downshifting, upshifting, doing something different, moving across the world to do whatever you want to do.
And I feel that's definitely a goal for a lot of people. And I feel that we talked about this previously before, and it's more about a mindset. You have to be in this FIRE mindset in order to participate in this new revolution, if you will, without sounding a bit too dramatic, I don't know. But what mindset would you say is the best to adapt or best to take on board when you decide to embark on this new FIRE journey? I'm using a lot of fluffy language here, aren't I?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just one mindset. I mean, the mindset I started with was just, I don't want to be poor and I don't want to be homeless, right? So I didn't start out with some terribly sophisticated financial mindset. I kind of built that over the years. So I kind of started from a place of fear, and the fear is like, oh shit, what am I going to do? Better go and get a decent job. Better save my money, better learn what I can about investing. And so, yeah, you build a mindset, from a starting point. And so, what's helpful as part of that? Well, I think it's helpful to kind of be flexible. I think it's helpful to always, even when you're working for an employer, to be kind of working for yourself in some regard. So you give your best to your employer, but you're ultimately thinking about, where will that take you? And the other thing I think that's part of the philosophy, or certainly part of my philosophy, is this idea of what I call the aggregation of marginal gains, which is everything adds up. And so, this is the Every Bit Helps podcast, so you can see the overlap there, that the idea that, small actions, small savings add up and compound over time and can create extraordinary results. And so, like the example I always give of that to people who don't really understand compounding and compound interest is, if you can save £15,000 between the age of 18 and 25, that turns into £1 million by the time you're 65 at a 10% per year annum, and that's without ever saving another penny after the age of 25. So knowing that is interesting, and doing it is even more interesting, but you have to kind of you kind of have to be patient, and you have to kind of give up something to get something more. So in order to put that money to work when you're between the age of 18 to 25, you might have to give something up. You might have to have a few less holidays and a bit less partying.
Oh no,
so
definitely.
It's about trade-offs, I guess, in that sense.
Oh, for sure. And I definitely feel that there is this sort of mentality around, like, I just want to get rich quick and like everything, but usually the best advice is play the long game and gain the rewards later on. And you're a perfect example of that when you stick to a system that works, you can retire early and just
I mean, if there was a way to get rich quick, legally and reliably, I would have done it. I don't have any moral obligation to I don't have any moral objection to getting rich quick. It's not a thing, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Sorry.
I think just, sorry to cut you off, but it was a really funny story that you told us about how one of your pieces of advice went viral, and a lot of people were skeptical of your advice. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Oh, which one was that?
It was in the Daily Mail, wasn't it? And they were like,
"Oh, okay, okay." No, so Fire got quite a lot of press coverage back in 2018. And so that was when I had my 15 minutes of fame. And one part of that was the Daily Mail wrote a piece about me and wrote a piece about financial independence. And so I was obviously kind of pleased, flattered. It's kind of, my ego thought, isn't it great to be in the newspaper? And so I kind of read the article and thought that was fine, and then I went down to look at the comments section and kind of thinking, some people would say, oh, this is interesting, and there's just pages and pages of people saying, screw this guy, who the hell does he think he is, why is he such an a-hole, essentially?
No.
And so I guess the moral of the story there is that envy is a thing. To do the financial independence thing, you're kind of walking a different path to a lot of other people, and so you're not spending and living paycheck to paycheck. You're not trying to buy as much stuff as you can. And a lot of other people do want to spend as much money as they can, and so that's fine, that's their choice. But it's a mistake for people like me to think that everyone wants to do what I did, because clearly not everyone does, and when you kind of tell them about it, they say bugger off.
I was going to say, like, a lot of people are very skeptical of, like, you can't retire early, you must work forever, there's that real mindset around. So
yeah, and it's true, if you spend everything you earn, you do have to work kind of forever.
Exactly.
So they're not wrong based on their current behaviour, but I'm a great believer you can change yourself, you can change your mindset, you can change your behaviour, and you can change your life.
Exactly. And that's why we have you on here, to kind of spread this rhetoric, because I feel a lot of people are stuck in the 9 to 5 grind. I've got to do this forever, where there is actually other options out there that people can explore. And as you said, doing something alongside your job can be really beneficial as well. And that was something that I wanted to ask you a little bit about, is I know that you run your own platform and you have people you've like helped achieve a similar outcome as well. Like, what is your greatest success story, whether that be your own, kind of learning from fear in the beginning, or whether you've heard from someone else like, oh, you really helped me out? Like, could you tell us any success stories?
Well, I mean, I get emails, I get emails all the time from people saying, thank you, this has changed my life. And so, well, I'll give you an example from this week, actually. So a guy emailed me to say thank you, because he'd spent kind of many years grinding away in corporate jobs that he didn't really like, and he, over the last 2 years, had quit that. He'd saved a kind of a retraining fund up, quit his kind of soul-sucking corporate job, and he's now several years into medical school, and he's going to be a doctor.
Okay.
And the email was wonderful, because he said, I'm probably not ever going to earn what I did in my corporate role. I'm probably going to be covered in sick and and surrounded by ill people, but it's my choice, it's my vocation, and it's what is going to bring like meaning into my life. And so he was kind of stoked about that, and he wrote to me to say thank you for the sort of inspiration and the support over the last couple of years. So it's very gratifying to hear stories like that from someone that's kind of going from unhappy sort of cubicle worker to doctor, which is clearly adding value to the world and adding value to society.
That's definitely a success story, if I've ever heard one. And this happened this week.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
I get quite a lot of emails like that.
That's very cool, though. I expect you to say like 1 or 2 of people like, yeah, I did it. But if there's like emails weekly, then it just further goes to show that if you change your mindset, then really things can shift. And that was actually another question I wanted to lead on, is with COVID, you highlighted that around like 30% of people, or like savings went up by 30% with people who weren't going outside, essentially, because no one could do anything. Do you feel that affected how people felt they could earn money and save? Or
that's really interesting. Before COVID, the pushback that I got, that Fire always gets, is, who are these crazy people? Why are they talking about being able to save like 30% of their income or 50% of their income? That's cloud cuckoo land. That's only for Bill Gates. That's only for rich people. That's impossible. I can't do it. Shut up. And so that was always the classic pushback that I got. And that's, when those Daily Mail readers puked up on me or in the comments section, that's what they all said. It's like, it's impossible to save 30, 40, 50, 60% of your income. Get back to your own planet. So that's the background. And then comes along COVID, and then and the lockdowns, and both in the UK and the USA, the national aggregate savings rate for the entire country went up from what it normally is, which is about 5%. So generally, people in the UK, people in the US spend 95% of their income, and that went up in both countries to over 30%. And so what I thought that was really powerful, so that's not the frugal people, that's the average. And so to me that was a real kind of validation of, it is possible, not just for very high earning people, but for a large swathe of the population to have these very high savings rates if push comes to shove, and if the motivation is high enough, and if that's what they really want. Now, it's an artificial situation in the sense that everyone was kind of told you have to stay at home and you're not allowed to go to the cinema and you're not allowed to go to pubs and restaurants and etc. But to me, it showed that it's possible.
Exactly, and because everyone was shut inside, and then a lot of people didn't want to come out after COVID was over. So I think it did change a lot of people's mindsets. And I think a lot of people did more research into how to save money, how to start up their own business. I know there's been a big boom on social media all following this trend of start your own business, start your own side hustle. And a pattern that I've seen is people moving to different countries. So essentially working in the UK, but living in somewhere where the cost of living is a little bit less. Would you say that this is a synergy that you see in the FIRE community, or is it something relatively new?
Hugely. So we call that geographic arbitrage. So the idea of earning in the UK, say, and then going to live in Mexico. So you've earned your money in sterling or in dollars in America, and then you go to somewhere like, I don't know, Mexico, and your money just goes so much further. And so that that makes incredible things possible. Plus you've got the whole move to remote working and people working from kind of anywhere. So the two, I mean, there were three big lessons of COVID. One was it is possible for a whole country to save 30% of its income. Number two, you don't have to be in the office. It was always a little bit of a scam, that office workers were told, oh yeah, you must always be here. You must always be here between 9 and 5 or whatever every single day, and we don't trust you. Because that's essentially what it is. It was about trust. We don't trust you to work from home. So that was shown to be, oh well, you can. When push comes to shove, that can be made to work. Yeah, and then the final message from COVID was, you kind of rise or fall to the level of your habits. So, it's been a great time. So being kind of locked down was great if you can organize yourself and provide your own discipline and kind of have good habits. And if you spent lockdown, eating Doritos, well, that's a problem.
Two different sides of the fence, yeah.
So yeah, it was you can kind of fall either side of the fence, as you say. But the geographic arbitrage thing, to me that's an aspect of it. I mean, it's not something I did because I've got 3 kids, so I was kind of tied to schools in the UK, and we didn't want to weren't brave enough to bring them up in somewhere else that was kind of super low cost. But it is increasingly possible.
Completely. And that was something I wanted to ask as well, is that I know from my research, the sort of FIRE community, there is a statistic that if you start saving from the age of 25, as you said, by 65 you'll have $1 million. Do you think that this is a mentality / movement that you can take on at any age, or do you feel it's more reserved, you should probably start as soon as you can, or do you think the boats sail by the time you're a little bit older?
So I just think of it as a set of tools to get better with money, which you can do at any point in your life. So let's say you've just all your life you've kind of you've not worried about the future, you're not saved for a pension, etc., and you get to the age of 60. Well, you could use the tools of financial independence essentially to binge save between the age of 60 to 65 and claw back the ground you've lost. Now that's going to be quite a brutal process, because you're going to have your lifestyle adjustment is going to be brutal.
Ramen every day.
So I would yeah, exactly. So I kind of wouldn't say don't worry about it, you can just start when you're 60. The way that the maths works is that compound interest rewards you for starting early. So this is my example of 15,000 saved between 18 and 25. The reason that grows to $1 million is because you've got essentially 40 years of growth and compounding from the stock market. So the sooner you get your money working for you, the better. And the sooner you start, the less of the heavy lifting that extreme frugality does, and the more of the heavy lifting that your investments do for you.
Completely. And as I said, long game is the best way to get the most out of your investments.
I kind of think it's the only way. So even in crypto, when I started writing about crypto, people like some of my audience were like, "Oh my God, Barney's gone mad. He's now encouraging day trading and short-term gambling." And I'm like, no, it's like, crypto is not. A lot of people think it's a get-rich-quick scheme, but what crypto really is, it's kind of a get-used-to-volatility-quick scheme.
Yes, 100%. I was going to say, do you implement crypto in your agenda of investments? But as you said, it's something you started, and you said the reaction was mixed around that one.
Well, I didn't. So crypto did not get me to financial independence. I quit my job in 2014 before I really knew much, if anything, about. I think I first heard of Bitcoin in about 2015, probably. So I was late to the crypto party, and crypto played no part of my portfolio in getting to financial independence. But and essentially because of my perception and the negative press coverage I read about it, I didn't really look too closely at Bitcoin. And so I ignored it for a long time. And so I only really went down the rabbit hole in 2021.
Yeah, there's a lot of, not cult, that's the wrong word, but there's a lot of enthusiasm behind certain cryptocurrencies, and I know people really back them. And I know this comes with a lot of negative, bad rep around crypto. Do you feel that this, sort of reputation is sensible, or do you think that there is actually more to crypto, or do you think it's a bit of both, really?
Well, all human life is there. So, it's like saying, what are the people like in crypto is like saying, what are the people like in London? It's a big place and there's a lot of people there. And so, but obviously the people that get the attention, if you're in the FIRE world, you've grown up with equity investing, stock market investing, and long-term, a long-term approach, index funds, not trying to be a stock picker, etc. So you've kind of built these quite conservative, cautious investing habits. And so for people like that, when you see all the guys on crypto Twitter with their laser eyes, and they're all shouting at each other, and they're all swearing at each other because and you're pumping your bags, and you're a scammer, and you're a grifter, and all of that stuff, you go like, oh my goodness, these people are crazy, and it's full of spivs.
I can feel that you've been on the dark side of crypto Twitter. I've been there myself, and it's a scary place to be. It's also very entertaining. But just speaking of crypto and sort of everything going a little bit wrong, you probably most definitely are aware of the FTX situation that happened and that mess. And I feel that could be a situation that could really put people off. What would you say sort of around the whole matter of that? And should it put you off, or should you just think about
it should investing? Make you proceed with caution. I would say that here's the thing. I first wrote about crypto in May 2021, and so I kind of published my first article or two about crypto, and then literally a week after there was an enormous plunge in May 21. And yeah, exactly. So I just found out about this. I'd done the work. I'd kind of thought I was being sensible. I'd learned, I'd done my homework, and then it tanks the next week.
Anyone who says they can predict crypto numbers is a liar. Number one.
You can't time the market. You just can't time the market. And so right from the get-go, my attitude to it has been, okay, I'm strapping into a roller coaster here. I need to not be careful, fasten the seatbelt and hold on for the ride because it's going to be extremely volatile. And so you've got the price volatility. You've got the fact that there's no one's going to pay you your money back if you get scammed or if you wire money to the wrong address, etc. So you've got that kind of lack of, you don't have the same degree of familiarity. You don't have the same degree of kind of regulatory safety net. You've got institutions such as FTX, such as Three Arrows Capital, who grow very quickly and blow up pretty quickly. And so it's still the Wild West. It's definitely still the Wild West. So my stance on it is it's not suitable for anything like the majority of my portfolio. I have quite a small percentage of my portfolio in crypto, single digits. But I do think that you can't really afford to ignore it because I think it has the potential to change the world.
Oh, completely. I feel that there's technology behind crypto that can be utilized and used in a way that can be very helpful in the future. But I just feel this is the time, like everything new, this is when things start to regulate and all the kind of rubbish gets cleared out and crashes happen, and then you're left with the bare bones and the people who are really there to stay, and you build something pretty good off of it. And if someone were interested in getting in crypto but they are a bit apprehensive, what would be the best advice you could give them in order for them to have a positive experience?
Start small. So it's really simple. I always just say to people, start small. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of can't go wrong if you just go to Coinbase or Kraken and you buy £100 or $100 of Bitcoin or Ethereum and then just sit with that for a while. Mm-hmm. Don't go crazy, don't bet your house on it, don't sell a kidney and buy it, don't mortgage your children, just
if you can help
just
it.
100 just start small and experience it. Mm-hmm. See how you feel with the kind of gut-wrenching volatility, and learn how to hold your own keys. So get yourself a hardware wallet, learn how to transfer crypto from an exchange to your hardware wallet and back again. Just those basic things. I think, if you can do that, that's a really good start. And most of the population can't yet do that. And I think that's essentially, then it's a choice. Do you go further down the rabbit hole? Do you learn more? Do you spend more time on it, or not? But I think I just say to people, start small and start safe.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the best advice, because if you just get your foot in the door and it goes well, that's fantastic. And if the market at the minute, it's a little bit turbulent, then you haven't lost. I always say never invest more than you're willing to lose, because you never know what's going to happen, especially in this market. And because it's coming up to the end of the year, I know there's a lot of tax questions surrounding finance. I know with your extensive financial background, you're probably one of the best people to ask. So concerning crypto taxes, could you explain a little bit how they work? And because I think no one really knows, and it would be great to get a little bit of clarity on that.
Yeah, well, I haven't been involved long enough to have done several tax returns with crypto gains and losses on it, but essentially the situation in principle is very simple, which is that crypto is taxed like any other asset class, in the sense that you are liable for capital gains tax on capital gains, and you are liable on crystallized capital gains, and you're liable for income tax on income derived from crypto activities such as staking, for example. So if you're staking your Ethereum, for example, that my understanding is that's just subject to income tax in the normal way. And so the the principles are just that. It's taxable. Yes, you do have to declare gains. You do have to declare income, and so everyone will have a different a different tax situation. But that's the broad brush principle. It's a taxable asset class, just like equities, or just like wine, or just like classic cars.
No, exactly. Yeah, everything's it's taxes and death is certain. I remember my dad saying a very cynical phrase when I was younger, and I didn't really know what taxes were back then. Now I do. But just as we're on the topic of tax, where does taxes come in the equation of FIRE? Because I know that there are like lots of layers to this, where if you live in a different jurisdiction, you may not necessarily have to pay income taxes, or how did you factor it into your saving plan?
So essentially the four pillars of financial independence, as I think of them, are: one, earn more; two, spend less, get your expenses down; three, invest the difference wisely; and four, know how much is enough. And so if you think about where taxes kind of operate in all of those four, so earn more, you should earn more, but obviously that's going to push you into a higher tax bracket. Spending includes VAT, and then when you invest, I talked about that kind of £15,000 and how much that can grow over 40 years. You want to protect as much of that growth as possible from the taxman. And so a big part of FIRE is using the tax shelters that are available to you. So that means using pensions, using workplace pensions, and or a self-invested personal pension, and it means using ISAs. And so essentially what you're trying to do is get those compounding gains, but have them happening in a tax shelter, so that the taxman is not getting his hands on that. And so with pensions, you essentially save net, and the taxman grosses it back up for your tax situation, and then it gets taxed when you withdraw from pension, age 57 or whatever. With an ISA, you invest out of post-tax income, and it doesn't get grossed up, but essentially all gains and income on investments sheltered by an ISA are tax-free. So a big part of FI and FI is just learning, educating yourself about investing, about tax, and sheltering as much as you can from tax as you legally can.
Exactly, and I feel that these aren't skills that we're really taught necessarily in mainstream education. Like, I found out a lot of my investing advice online through random people on TikTok, which doesn't sound very reliable, but at the same time I have learned a lot more about saving and making sure that you have a retirement package when you're older. And this isn't anything that I knew about or even knew was possible. I was taught that 9 to 5, get a job, and your work will sort out your retirement for you. So this is all very interesting to know, and I think there's a lot of nuggets of information that people will be taking away. And just to sort of wrap up, because I know we're coming around to like the 30-minute mark of talking, I know people will be listening to this and be really excited and want to get involved. So where would the best place to start be? So if they want to get involved right after this interview, they've heard it, what would the best starting point be, would you say?
Well, so you can go to my website, and on my website, so my website is theescapeartist.me, so www.theescapeartist.me, and there's a reading list, a FIRE reading list on there.
Fantastic.
And so there's a bunch of books there that explain about investing and financial independence. And so I mean, I won't go through all of them, but I mean a couple that I would highlight right off the bat. One, there's a wonderful book called Your Money or Your Life, and that the phrase it's a reference to, if you think about highwaymen back in the whatever it was 1700s, they used to like hold up stagecoaches and point a gun at the sort of people in there and say, hand over your jewels, hand over your money, or we'll kill you, so your money or your life. And so the passengers would hand over their jewelry, so they would prioritize their life over their money. Whereas what the book is saying is that by kind of accepting the 9 to 5 and doing it forever, you're basically taking the money, you're prioritizing money over your life. And so the book is a call to just think about your spending, think about how much value you're getting from each item that you spend on, and how much happiness is that producing versus the unhappiness of not being in charge of your life and essentially working till you're 65. So Your Money or Your Life is one of the kind of classic founding texts of financial independence. There's another classic on there called The Millionaire Next Door, and I just love that book. The title kind of says it all, which is most millionaires in America, because it's an American book and it's based on a lot of American data, the typical American millionaire is not kind of driving around in a Rolls Royce, wearing a top hat, wearing a suit, or a gold cane or something. The average millionaire, you wouldn't, they're just living next door, and they just live a very kind of quiet, unassuming, frugal lifestyle, and that's why they're a millionaire. Because exactly. They work hard, they don't fritter the money away, and they just kind of quietly get on with it. So it's kind of stealth wealth, if you like. And so that kind of concept of kind of quiet wealth, the wealth that you don't see, the hidden wealth, that's a kind of really important aspect to financial independence, and that's covered really well in that book.
Exactly, and I feel that excuse me, is something that we're also taught as like millionaires are like flashy and you have to show that you've accumulated a lot of wealth, but there is richness in living comfortably and living without worry, and also prioritizing living over working, which I think is a rhetoric that's really starting to come out, especially in the last few years with COVID as well. So I think that's some fantastic advice that you've given. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm sure people have taken away a lot from this podcast. I certainly have. I'm going to start reading these books now. I want to definitely dive in a little bit more, but I just want to shout out your platforms as well. Please head to Barney's website and have a look at his reading list. There's going to be so much more knowledge on there, and I feel that we can't even squeeze enough information into this podcast. And make sure to go follow our channels if you're interested in more information about crypto tax. We will be doing a video on that very shortly, as the tax year is starting to round up and it is a little bit ambiguous. Make sure to like and comment, and head to the Spotify and Apple podcast list in order to like and give us a good review, essentially, because we're new to this, so it's exciting. And yes, I think that's everything. Thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to say before we stop the pod?
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. You can have a good rest now. I've racked your brains for the last 30 minutes, so thank you so much. Really appreciate it.